The Great Canadian Talk Show. 92.9. 92.9. FM.
Good afternoon, Winnipeg, and everybody else who's listening from wherever you are, around the city, around the province, or around the world via the magic of the internet. I suppose some people might be listening on MTS. I don't know if they offer MTS TV. They offer MTS TV outside of Winnipeg, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you think that they get the same stations, like that we'd be on Channel 724 in Dauphin or something?
That's a very good question. That'd be fantastic if we were, but...
I never even considered that, what kind of outreach we have.
We would get, yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Because we're just so used to thinking of ourselves as radio, but it's so much more. In the radio format.
It is, but are you sure we're on MTS?
Yeah, of course we are. 724. Okay. I listen to I among as well as many others, listen to the replay Sunday night. And not only that, yesterday the replay of the interview with Anders Swanson of the advisor.
Yeah, you got
I got more emails. Follow-up emails. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to them today, but I got a number of follow-up emails to that interview that was being replayed. Then I could have possibly expected, including the odd person that thought that there might be one email in particular I'll get to. They thought it was live, and they were calling in complaining how the ops weren't picking up the phone. So I did have to send them an email and explain that nobody was actually here. That last song that played, can you back sell it for a second?
Yeah, sure. That was Secret Dakota Ring.
Here's what a listener says. This last song is like what people being to a social and ask me to play. Nobody but the person with the disc wants to hear it and should never get airplay. Terrible. So it's something, please let Rick know that at least one listener doesn't appreciate. What was that called?
The artist of Secret Dakota Ring, the song was called The Fade to Black.
Yeah. Well, it might fade to black on this station. This is the Great Canadian Talk Show, 92.9 Kick FM, brought to you by CDI College, changing lives through advanced education. If you know somebody who's looking for a new career, business, technology, healthcare, they have it all over at Graham in Maine, the beautiful CDI building, the old Wilson's Furniture in downtown Winnipeg. Give them a call at 942-1773, and Tal East and her crew will get you set up. Matter of fact, Tal is going to be on with us tomorrow on the program. Today, Harvey Smith was originally scheduled, but I got a call earlier today from his office. Now, Harvey sustained a serious back injury a few weeks ago, and he's just getting back into the swing of things, and he's heavy into prep for the city council meeting tomorrow. And so Harvey's office asked if we could reschedule this, the interview with him, and I was a little surprised by having to do it, but for Harvey, of course, I'll do it. I do it for any guest, noteworthy or otherwise. And so Harvey Smith will not be here with us today. He will rather be appearing in studio next Monday. And won't that be a classic? Harvey Smith and Frank the Italian Barber.
Wow.
Yeah, it's going to be quite the meeting of the minds, eh?
That'd be like 300 years worth of experience in the same room.
Yeah, which I'm sure is a surprise to Frank because he's only 100 years old himself. So, and we will be hearing from Frank the Italian Barber about 20 after 5 in a very special appearance. Frank managed to attend two kinds of football games, a CFL game in Hamilton, I think that was Friday night, and then the NFL game in Buffalo on Sunday. And so I'm going to be getting Frank on the line well after 5 o'clock for him to explain his experiences as a football fan on both sides of the border. Look at this, another email from a listener already. Talk@kick.fm, for those of you who want to continue to email us. No MTS TV in LaSalle, 8 kilometers from the perimeter, and they don't offer it. Rogers even tried to give me a long-distance phone number for my wife's cell phone. It takes 6 minutes from Waverly in the perimeter to get home. LaSalle is long distance? That's crazy talk. Well, perimeteritis. Well, we don't suffer from perimeteritis here. Anyways, in lieu of Harvey Smith appearing today, we are going to be able to cover, to a greater extent than I had originally anticipated, the news of the day and the news of the weekend, including the movements in the NDP leadership race. Andrew Swan dropping out, the delegate delegate race, relatively speaking, had a number of commentators having a jaundiced view, perhaps, of Andrew Swan deciding to forego his leadership campaign. As well, Steve Ashe and Greg Solinger now going head-to-head. Unlikely anybody else is going to be entering that race. I think the deadline technically is Friday. And continuing to come forth with pronouncements trying to out-left each other. Although I think Ashton is winning in the going to the what was the term? I'm sorry, in the David Lewis NDP era, waffling to the left. Steve Ashe waffling even further to the left today with promises of more human rights related legislation. Like that's what the province really needs. So we're going to take a look at that. I have a very special email that I got from a listener about Premier Dewar and comments he made last week on CJOB Radio. We have a lengthy email from a pot grower about why the Premier is does not have the munchies and is actually out to some meal or other, breakfast, lunch, or dinner, when it comes to his comments about people who buy pot or the pot industry fueling gang crime in Winnipeg and in Manitoba. As well, I'm going to take a look, and it'll be a critical look indeed, at a column by Colleen Samard this weekend. She's calling for a boycott with no reason whatsoever when you get right down to it, calling for a boycott of a small business. We're going to take a look at that and the question of whether or not it isn't Colleen Samard's newspaper, the Winnipeg Free Press, that shouldn't be boycotted in this, as well as, the little slants in the media coverage of the incident at OK Grocery that may or may not have resulted in the eventual demise of Geraldine Beardy. We're going to try to take a look at that information as well. There's some other things that I was going to touch on that I was hoping to save for Harvey Smith, and so haven't really determined yet. We'll see how the time management works today, about whether I get into some of the emails I've gotten about, in particular, about bike paths, and I think there's some stuff with rapid transit. So I might end up saving some of this stuff for Harvey Smith's appearance next week. Now, after 5 o'clock, not only are we going to have Frank the Italian Barber, but the Crime Courts and Public Safety Update. You want to listen to this. Insider information about the triple assault, the rampage at the house party on Toronto that was invaded by somebody who had been tossed out, coming back with so-called friends, armed variously with a hammer. I believe there was a hammer, a knife, and there was another weapon involved. They'll have a baseball bat. And we have insider information about those assaults on Toronto Avenue as well. There's some other things that have come up, a court case that we kept track of. What happens when somebody won't share their drugs with you and you set fire to the house? Not much. We're going to talk about that. There's some other court cases that have come up today. Something that I don't think I've read anywhere about today. A robbery at a local fire hall on Saturday night when firefighters out responding to a call. So I'm going to try to get to that situation. As well, there was a tasering. There was another assault. So there's lots of, and I don't even know if I'm going to be able to get to all of it. And, of course, not that it'll fit into the Crime Court's Public Safety Update, but an email about Gordon Sinclair's exploitation of Farron Hall as fodder for his own column about the failed shoplifter Geraldine Beardy. So I'm going to try to slap all this together into some semblance of order. And John Gerard, Liberal leader, will be talking with us at 4:40 today. Did I even mention that John Gerard? No, I guess not. Dr. John Gerard, Liberal leader, going to be talking with us today at 4:40 about a bungled, failed government health initiative in northern Manitoba. And this is, this is only, $1.6 million of your money down the drain. So we're going to have Dr. John Gerard on for a little while, about 4:40. I'll have him on for 10 minutes or so to give us some background on that. And, of course, as I mentioned in our interview with him last week about peak of the market. And that reminds me, let me make a little note here for Wednesday. Call Larry McIntosh. We have to renew our call to try to get Larry McIntosh's Peak of the Market back on this program, since nobody else has bothered interviewing him about the threats made to potato growers in this city and in this province. So anyways, last week we had Dr. Gerard on. He and I had a pretty good set to on. He didn't want to be critical of Peak of the Market, but I have no such qualms about sticking up for potato and other growers in this province at the hands of the secret regulatory body. I say secret because it's not like it was ever revealed to anybody. There was a marketing board with onerous powers, not something voluntary. In any event, as I indicated in that interview with Dr. Gerard last week, when it comes to medical matters, I frequently defer to him and his superior grasp of the facts. And in this case, a program in northern Manitoba completely gone sideways. The government, of course, not wanting to admit it, but that's our job, is to expose these kinds of things, because for some reason, nobody in the mainstream media thought that this was important enough to cover. So that basically covers the waterfront of what we're going to be talking about. Adam in the control room instructing yet another fabulous first-year CRECOM student in the ways and means of how to board op without throwing us completely off the air, which has been known to happen.
Yeah.
But hopefully not anytime soon.
Yep.
Was there anything you want to add to the affair right now?
To the affair right now, no.
Oh.
I could talk to my show, or talk about my show that I've got on tomorrow in context.
Do you want to talk about it right now?
Yeah, sure.
You might as well
get it done. Tomorrow we are going to be. Let's see. I'm trying to get somebody in from the Canada Breast Cancer Foundation on to talk about breast cancer, because of the CIBC Run for the Cure this weekend.
Okay.
Also, the city just announced a new coalition with a whole bunch of arts organizations. We're going to touch on that. But the big feature thing is, in light of this, I'm going to put these folks on hold briefly.
Yeah. You folks that are phoning in, just hang on. Adam will be with you in just 1 second, so don't hang up.
So, and
phones are lighting up. We haven't even talked about anything yet.
I know.
So it's tomorrow. But you're trying to get somebody on with regards to breast cancer.
Yep.
This arts coalition, is it?
Yeah, arts promotion coalition thing.
Okay.
But this last thing is in light of the gang strategy that was recently announced. Wow, these lines are just going mad.
We're not even giving anything away yet.
I know.
I don't even know if I have anything to give away today.
In light of all of this gang announcement, I decided to talk to an actual gang member. So I've got a kid coming in, and he really is a kid. He's 19 years old. He's in high school, and he's in a gang. And
you're doing something that mainstream media outlets are afraid to do.
Yeah. And I'm bringing him in, and we're going to talk gang life. We're going to talk real life on the streets. We're going to talk about how he got in, how he got out, and that kind of thing. That's tomorrow in context. Wednesday, 6 p.m. right here on Kick FM.
Okay, well, I'm going to mark that down. I'll make sure to plug that tomorrow on the show. Now, since Adam's got to get to the phones, let's head off to the break. When we come back, all things related to the NDP leadership campaign, and an email that we got all about the Premier's position on the marijuana industry, and we'll get into some other subjects. And then Dr. John Gerard will be joining us talking about another matter provincially. $1.6 million of your money flushed down the John in a failed program, a healthcare program in northern Manitoba. So all that and more on today's edition. No Harvey Smith, but we'll make up for it next Monday. We'll be extra tough on Harvey. Talk at kick.fm, the email address, 780-5425, the number you're listening, The Great Canadian Talk Show on Winnipeg's Indie Station, 92.9 Kick FM.
Kirby's lets you save time and money on your walk and yard by adding continuous concrete landscaping, edging, colorful curb lighting, and more. Mention this ad and save 10%. Call 1-877-696-2872 for a free estimate, or go to www.kirby's.com.
Want to know how to move forward in life? Get ahead? Do better for yourself? The answer is CDI College. CDI's helped thousands of grads get ahead, and you could be next. Call CDI right now. They have lots of programs to choose from. Programs that can get you in, get you trained, and get you working in less than a year. Training will help you move forward and make more money. It's as simple as that. A new career in under a year? What are you waiting for? Call CDI now at 1-800-380-7359 or go online at cdischool.com.
Call Unicity Taxi at 925-3131. Unicity Taxi has the most cabs on the road, the most advanced 24-hour dispatch system, and 75% of their fleet is hybrid vehicles. Reserve your cab in advance and your driver will be right on time. They can even set you up with a charge account. Let Unicity Taxi do the driving at 925-3131.
Funky, fashionable, or just plain understated? If you're looking for the best in eyewear, look no further than the Focal Point Optician on the University of Manitoba campus. Great looking frames at great prices, great contact lenses too, eye exams available on site, and an experienced staff focused on making sure your eyewear needs are taken care of. That's the Focal Point way. Make your way to 121 University Center Building at the U of M or call 474-7090.
If you'd like better sleep, more energy, and a lot less pain, we have the solution. If you've been injured at work or at play, find out what the pros do to get back in the game. At Stephen Hank's Premier Massage Group, each individual treatment is specifically tailored precisely for you. With almost 15 years experience, they're truly Winnipeg's finest and home to Canada's only master practitioner. No fluff and buff. They're here to fix you and do it right. Find out what you've been missing. Change starts here. So call today, 770-4414, or look them up on the web at www.massagegroup.com.
Your voice.
All of which makes me anxious, at times unbearably so.
The Great Canadian Talk Show. 92.9 Kick FM.
Sorry, I should have started that song.
No, that's okay. 418 here on the Great Canadian Talk. I can work with the beat. 418 here on the Great Canadian Talk Show. You know, one of the things that we specialize in here is in getting people motivated to do things for themselves, to stand up to the system, to make the calls that need to be made to public officials or to bureaucrats or whoever, and to try to get something done. Now, there are times where we'll take in cases that need some extra special help or where the public needs to be informed. Example, this coming Thursday, you're not going to want to miss it. This Thursday, we're going to have a very special story, an exclusive story, and the bottom line on that story is going to be: don't let the public trustee's office anywhere near your family, especially if you have elderly parents. This is a story that needs to be told. We are going to tell it. This has involved children having to come together from across North America to try to get their families' affairs set in order, their elderly parents' affairs set in order, after the public trustee managed to weasel its way in. And they make a lot of money, that public trustee's office, with zero, I repeat, zero accountability. The kinds of details, the things that go wrong when the public trustee's involved is absolutely mind-blowing. I spent 4 hours on that story today, 3-4 hours with the family in question. That's an exclusive story coming up on the Great Canadian Talk Show. You thought the Gail Glesby case made you sick to your stomach? Well, of course, a woman ended up dying in the hospital, and Health Science Center tried to deny that they had anything to do with it or that anybody could have possibly fallen and that could have caused the fatal aneurysm. Nobody's died yet. But that took the intervention of the family, because the public trustee may say that they take control and be responsible for people's lives, but there's limits to how they interpret the term responsibility. Now, on a smaller scale, there can be things where people feel that they're being pushed around. They feel that they aren't getting proper service. They feel that they're being taken advantage of. And when you go all the way down the line, the very top would be matters relating to healthcare and personal finances, etc. And the bottom of the line is stuff like, say, garbage pickup. We've all seen the controversy erupting over the notion that the north side of the city is going to be dominated by a certain kind of garbage pickup with these rolly cart garbage pails, and people saying, well, how come this isn't being imposed in the south end where the rich people live? Good question. Meanwhile, last week I had a call from somebody off the air who was upset that their garbage was being picked up at the ungodly hour of like 5:30 in the morning. And so I encouraged this listener to make a few phone calls and to rattle some cages. And lo and behold, on line one, said listener, and how he solved his BFI garbage being picked up when he was still asleep problem. Caller?
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine. I'm glad you called in. But you have an update for us on how you managed to get some positive response from your elected officials.
I did. I was having an ongoing, like you had said earlier, problem with BFI picking up my garbage at 5:40 in the morning, and it was waking up my children. Now, that's what the problem was, is that it was too early and waking up my kids. They got to be at school at 9. So we spoke, and thank you very much for your input. I did follow through with what I was going to do anyway, and that was to call Gordon McIntosh's office and Harry Lazarenko's office and start to raise a little noise of my own. After repeated attempts through BFI with Mr. Dan Serene, the operations manager, he was unable to get the garbage staff to stop picking up the garbage at 5:40 in the morning himself, it seemed. I thought I gave him ample tries. I gave him 3 opportunities to remedy this with his own staff. And it didn't change the time. The time stayed consistent, 5:40, 5:45 a.m.
Oh, boy.
So
on the one hand, I'm glad they're out nice and early, but on the other hand, that doesn't do any good for people that, like yourself, that live in residential neighborhoods. This isn't like they're doing industrial pickups.
And, this also isn't a shot at the staff to me, the staff is just doing a tough job. They got a lot of ground to cover, and I understand they're trying to get an early jump on what, garbage can pile up. Ask Toronto.
Yeah.
So, good for the staff that are following through, but if they're being directed by their management team to break the law, well, then they're as much to fault, I guess. But at the end of the day, to me, the management should be saying, no, we're not allowed to pick up garbage till 7 a.m., and it's mandated that it's not to be picked up till 7 a.m. in residential areas, unless otherwise a different private company is picking up garbage somewhere out of town, we'll say, a business area. Then they have basically carte blanche. You can go anytime. Now, residential areas is totally different from what my understanding is. So I went to see Mr. McIntosh's office, and the people at Gord McIntosh's office, thank you if you fellas are listening, were very good in listening with me and wrote down a bunch of notes, and they were going to follow through, but they suggested that I phone Harry Lazarenko's office.
Okay, well, which just makes sense because he's the city councillor. Correct.
So I was at this point, Marty, offended terribly by BFI, so I wanted the big dogs getting in. I was going to go and phone Sam Cates about it. I'd had enough.
Oh, you've been listening to this. You've been listening to this program, haven't you?
I have, but I've also got a backbone of my own. And when it comes to my children, yeah, I'll fight with you. Let's go. My children need to sleep. They got to be at school at 8:40 in the morning, and parents can understand that, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
So Harry Lazarenko's office returning call was made by Mr. Hurley. Another one. Thank you, Mr. Hurley, if you're listening. He definitely heard, my entire concern. He sent an email off to, I guess, the operations manager. I shouldn't say for sure. I assume to the operations manager of BFI, Mr. Serene, Dan Serene. And also to the gentleman who takes care of the waste disposal for the city of Winnipeg, who hands out contracts and whatnot. And, how it's all awarded is really, I don't know. But he is the man, apparently. Well, they in turn emailed back to me telling me that, no, this isn't acceptable and we will help you with your fight here. They were very polite in regards to my concerns, but they were also very stand-up about the BFI people. And I appreciate that, but again, we're talking about children sleeping.
Yeah.
I don't care about Dan Serene's people. My kids got to sleep. In turn, after the fourth week or so, the third week, they had done one email send, and I'm very delighted that this morning they picked up our garbage. My wife is home, but she stays home with the children, at 9:30 this morning. And my kids were not woken up at 5:40, and the rest of the house walking around like zombies by 7:15 in the morning. So, yeah, I do suggest highly to anyone, definitely follow up in your own area, talk to your elected people. Surprise, surprise, every now and again, things turn out to our benefit.
For all the criticism that I've had in particular, for instance, Gord McIntosh or Harry Lazarenko, I can tell you that there are a number of times where I've heard from constituents like yourself that at the constituency level, they have gotten some help from those individuals on different problems. And in that regard, I think it's excellent. I've dealt with Chris Hurley in Lazarenko's office, and I don't know if I mentioned. I don't know if I mentioned this on the air, but I actually accidentally got Harry on the phone a couple of weeks ago, and he swears he's not too scared to come back on this program. So hopefully we'll be getting Councillor Lazarenko on in the next couple of weeks. But this is an example where you didn't just accept the notion that the system sets the stage and that you're a bit player. And in fact, you flexed your muscle as a constituent and you got some kind of response. And I think that's excellent.
Thank you very much. And it's unfortunate that it had to go this way. I would at least think, that after repeated attempts for the management of BFI to handle this without it getting out of control would have been enough. But they elected to say, no, we'll get to it when we get to it. We got lots to do. You just be quiet and let your garbage be picked up. Well, I disagree with that. I have every right to say I want it picked up at a reasonable time. So thank you, everyone that was listening, and also especially to Chris Hurley. He was absolutely phenomenal, and the staff at Gord McIntosh's office was great.
That's a good news story all the way around, and I appreciate you bringing it forward, and I hope that encourages other people that have issues with regards to civic services, including those that are third-party contracted out as the garbage pickup is to BFI, to be proactive. And if you don't like the response you get from the private company, then that's when you ask your elected officials to stand up for you, stand up for your neighborhood, and to get some genuine affirmative action, as it were. And in this case, the action is entirely affirmative because now everybody wakes up like zombies at their usual time.
That's right.
Excellent. I appreciate you calling in today. Thanks very much for listening.
Take care.
4:27 here on the Great Canadian Talk Show. I just mentioned the question about whether MTS TV broadcasts. Broadcasts. I don't know if that's. Yeah, I guess it is broadcast. If the service is provided outside of the boundaries of the city of Winnipeg, and we heard that it's not available, for instance, in LaSalle, Manitoba, which is like 6 minutes south of the city, taking Waverley in the perimeter. Well, a further email from that listener that bears some repeating, and this has to do with their overall satisfaction or lack thereof with MTS as a service provider in communications, which is more or less going to be about as the equivalent to my status. There we go. MTS even tried to charge me a $65 disconnection fee because I didn't give them 30 days notice to terminate my TV service. I moved from Charleswood, where I did subscribe, and wanted to get it hooked up in my new home, was told not only did they not offer it, but because I didn't give them enough notice, I would either have to pay for another 30 days of service I couldn't receive or pay the surcharge. They then stood me up for the appointment to hook up my high-speed internet, AAA alarms, and home phone service. I dumped them as fast as I could. They went from me paying them about $450 per month for all the services I received to about $50 a month for my cell phone, which still has a year left on the contract. I also found out, listen to this one, I found out that when MTS charges a late payment fee of 2%, they calculate it not on how much you are outstanding on, but on the previously billed amount. So for easy math, let's say your bill was $1,000. You paid $990 of that bill. You'd be paying $20 late fees. Oh, $999. So you owe listen to this, Adam. You owe $1,000. You pay $999 on your MTS bill. You would end up paying $20 in late fees on the $1 outstanding balance.
Wow.
Now, for all the laws that Steve Ashton wants to bring into this province, you'd think that there'd be a law against this one.
How about a law against fuzzy math?
Yeah. If only people read their phone bills like I do. Nasty stuff. Yeah, nasty stuff.
It is.
In DDD. Yeah, that's
that $6.95 service charge.
Yeah.
That's the bane of my existence.
Haven't they modified that, or was that only one of the providers?
No. Well, I know that a certain provider. I know that one provider doesn't charge it. I'm not sure about but I'm pretty sure the rest of them charge it.
Yeah, somebody changed it, but then they altered it to some sort of other CRTC fee or something, so that it ends up netting out being the same.
Yeah, I think so.
Because then there'd be some sort of revenue shortfall because they've been depending on this ripoff for years.
Yeah.
Oh boy. I've just gotten a leak from a customer. A leak from, it's a customer of somebody. I don't know if I'm going to be able to open this on the show here on this computer. I can't, so I'm going to have to do this story tomorrow. We'll tease it this way. Story about something going on involving finances and one of the university campuses. I've been sent a document that certainly bears further discussion, and I'll open it up tonight, and we will bring you that story tomorrow. It's something we've covered before on this program, so I'm looking forward to being able to open that up and see what the PDF document contains. Now, what a change a couple of days makes. Andrew Swan deciding yesterday, CBC first breaking the story, that he was going to drop out of the race, canceling a platform announcement for 11 a.m. on Monday and turning it into a noon I've had enough kind of media scrum. Interesting the leaders and politicians' reactions to it. Dave Chomiak saying it showed great maturity on Andrew Swan to drop out. These are all his backers. Darlene Jewett, president of the Manitoba Federation of Labor. The difficulty for him to overcome was the fact he wasn't as well known, but people know him now. What did Dan Letts say? Here's a guy who came into the race describing himself as a long-distance runner, and he couldn't finish the race. Well, based on Jewett's logic, people now look at Andrew Swan as though he's a quitter. Teresa Oswald, now he had a lot of backing from the strong women in cabinet. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Who was the horse I was backing? I wonder if a horse can take itself out behind the barn and shoot itself. Nancy Allen saying she was disappointed. For me, this is about party renewal. That tells you that, in fact, there's a very deep split internally in the NDP. We see it being played out in the race between Steve Ashton and Greg Selinger now. Ashton catering to a lot of the very, very special interest groups that populate the NDP tent, and Selinger trying to maintain, while distancing himself from Gary Doer, still trying to maintain the illusion of a Doer-like candidacy. Gord McIntosh, Family Services Housing Minister, at least there's one less division now and there's a more united approach as we head into the convention. What kind of baffle gab is that? There's one less division now and a more united approach. What do you mean? It's a more divided approach. If there's 3 candidates, that means there's a compromise candidate between the 2 leading camps. You know what I'm saying? People can say, well, there's X on the right of the left and Y on the left of the left, and then maybe there's something that's sort of in the middle of the left. Baffle gab. Double talk. Unbelievable. Hugh McFadden, the Conservative leader, saying he was supposed to be the candidate of the next generation, the candidate of renewal, and that Swan has been pushed aside in the process. The process coming up, amazing how last week Steve Ashton complaining about the move away from one member, one vote, but now as of today, he was still leading in the delegate race. Though it may not last past tonight. I know St. Boniface Delegate Selection Committee selection meeting is on this evening. Questions abounding about why Swan dropped out of the race. The suggestion that was made by Mr. Swan is that he was too far behind, didn't see how he'd be able to catch up. Now, in terms of delegates, Ashton and Sellinger were pretty much neck and neck. I think Ashton, as of the last time I saw count, was ahead, having taken the paw, the loss in the paw, a bitter pill to swallow for Andrew Swan. The endorsement of Frank Whitehead, the competition between Sellinger and Swan for Whitehead's endorsement and the control he supposedly had over the membership in the paw with 1,200 members, it meant absolutely, positively nothing, as Steve Ashton ended up taking apparently 117 of those supporters. Now, even then, you look at it and you go, well, let's say Swan thought he'd get half. He'd still be sitting with 120. Sellinger and Ashton would still be a little bit over 200, one way or the other. Why would he have dropped out when so much of his support was coming from Labour? So much of his support was coming from various aspects of the provincial Labour movement. It doesn't make sense in many ways. Now, some people saying, well, this is because they want to unite the not as far left against Steve Ashton, rather than go into a convention where it's possible that somehow Ashton would be able to sneak off a first ballot victory and there'd be no opportunity for Swan, presuming he would continue to run third, to swing his support over to the Sellinger camp. And in fact, Swan, in dropping out of the race, has endorsed Sellinger, as has many of his supporters, the cabinet and caucus. And you see the split going on here. Here's Swan that had so many of Gary Doer's people behind him, a lot of support in the cabinet, out of the race. Ashton with no support among caucus. 3 MLAs, I think, have come out for him. And yet by playing the game, and again, we saw this weekend, I think it was in the Free Press, the complaints that he signed up a whole bunch of new members, a whole bunch of ethnics, and they aren't real NDPers. Well, did you want one member, one vote? No, you didn't. You wanted a delegate selection process whereby these delegate meetings could be stacked. And now the MFL, Darlene Jewett, finding themselves hoist on their own petard. Couldn't happen to a nicer bunch. Now, as for the electability of Andrew Swan, who's a guy I happen to, on a personal level, it's not like I don't like the guy or something. But you want an example of why this guy needs more political seasoning, look no further than the pandering he was making to the environmental movement. Why, it was only on Friday when his campaign was looking bright green, that he was promising to institute a rebate program if he became premier. Remember when olive oil in the old Popeye cartoons, if I were president? Well, if he were premier, he's going to offer a rebate program up to $5,000 for multi-unit landlords to put in things like dual flush toilets, solar panels, and geothermal heating. Now, here's where the thinking of the left, the far left, and the loony left goes completely out the window. To lead by example, according to CBC News, Swan said he would push for all public schools in the province to be outfitted with dual flush toilets over the next 3 years. And green technology be exempt from the provincial sales tax. How about, remember when a couple of years ago, when George Hicks, the Speaker of the House, the representative for the good people of Point Douglas, said that he would push within caucus for alarms, home alarms, to be exempt from provincial sales tax so people could do something to protect themselves from the rash of break-ins and home invasions? That's gone nowhere. But, if it's for a toilet, then the NDP, their leadership hopefuls think it'd be a great idea to have that exempt from tax. Now, let's think of this. Dual flush toilets in public schools. Lead by example. Okay, so who pays for it? You, the taxpayer. And you know what else you're going to pay for if dual-flush toilets are put in public schools? A quadrupling of maintenance bills. When those toilets get clogged, you cannot possibly start trusting children in elementary schools across this province whose behavior varies widely from what you and I would refer to as good to not so good. You really think that the habit of children, of small children, of trying to clog toilets with various devices and debris, and that's going to stop? It hasn't stopped in 50 years. It went on before my day, went on in my day, goes on even till today. Reliable sources telling me from various schools around the province. He would have installed technology that sounds great, would have cost an arm and a leg on the front end, didn't want the toilets recycled, because, see, that would be a bad message to actually recycle them because they're wasteful somehow. You know what? There's some places where you need toilets that can flush properly. But when you're so devoted to the green movement that you can't see past the end of your whatever. So that's an example of the kind of promises that are being made. Steve Asher, they come out with a promise to institute new legislation that would outstrip the Human Rights Act, that would ban racist comments. God knows how that's going to be defined in law. Steve Ashen is opposed to free speech. That's how far he's willing to go catering to the left. Meanwhile, Premier Dewar, having catered it to I don't know what in his statements on CJOB Radio last week, that the attempted murder of Derek Sanderson behind his home on Alloway being torched by gangbangers, where Premier Dewar said if you buy marijuana, you're supporting the gangs. A very special email from a listener who is a pot grower. And you know what? Because it's as lengthy as it is, I'm going to hold that over for a couple of minutes because I'm expecting Dr. John Gerard to call in any minute now, and I want to be able to get to the whole thing. Now, one other thing that I want to mention with regards to the dropping Andrew Swan dropping out of the leadership race to succeed Premier Dewar. Dan Lett saying that this is a disappointment to many people, that he should have stayed in the race, and drew the analogy that here's a guy who introduced himself as a long-distance runner and, in fact, dropped out of the race. There's one factor the mainstream media has not touched, come near, commented on, or approached that may have factored into Swan's decision. Because it certainly seems bizarre that he gets the endorsement of the Police Association on Thursday, makes pronouncements about the environment on Friday, but was counting so heavily on the results in the PAW. And he's not a novice. Swan's not a novice politician. So he knows that there can be if you'll excuse the phrase, an ebb and flow, as it were, to the way election campaigns, nomination campaigns can work. In fact, one factor that may have come into play is that what Swan has protested. There was a posting made on the internet on a rather obscure website that was picked up by a local blogger about 3 weeks ago. This was a very serious allegation regarding Mr. Swan's high school days. There was no way to track the name attributed to the comment that had been left. Certainly a Google search turned up nothing under that name. That post was removed, according to the website, not the website, the blog that picked it up in Winnipeg. That is still been maintained. But the original comments, allegations about Mr. Swan going back to high school had disappeared from that page, according to the web page owners or whatever, because of a defamation/libel claim made by Andrew Swan and a hyperlink to Swan's election page. So it demonstrated that they were satisfied that that Swan himself had intervened. So here's a situation where a claim had been made about Swan, not anonymously but perhaps pseudonymously on the internet, that would have, in the opinions of some people, may have required some either denial or some sort of investigation. The claim had been made to get the original post deleted from that internet page. The blog that brought it up still, and that blog referred to this in very negative terms, in terms of speculating it might have even been a dirty trick by an opposing campaign, but that it was a very serious and damaging kind of allegation to be made. You got to wonder if something happened over the course of the weekend and subsequent to the endorsement of the police association. We had Mike Sutherland in the studio on Thursday to talk about the decision of the Police Association to get involved in the NDP leadership race because, as Mike explained, this isn't just an NDP leader that's being brought forward, but a potential premier. And you got to wonder if something happened over the course of the weekend that would have put Swan in a position where he felt that rather than have this, what I will term rumor about him going back over 24 years, I guess it would be, rather than have that circulate and have him put in a position of trying to explain, defend, not address it at all, which I don't know would have been a solution to the problem, the potential problem, if in fact that matter played into his decision to drop out of the race. I'll be interested indeed to see if any of the mainstream media outlets pick up on this. I'm not saying that I would have put, and I don't think anybody who reads it closely, although now you can't read it because it's been deleted, but I retained a copy of the page capture of the original commentary, allegations about Andrew Swan. I don't know that anybody could look at it and take it as gospel truth or take it literally or seriously. But it's the kind of thing that with the Minister of Justice supporting him, with the Police Association supporting him, I can't, as I said, I can't help but wonder if something didn't come up over the course of the weekend that would have compromised Swan's ability to carry on the campaign free from having to address that allegation of scandal. Now, maybe somebody from the mainstream media, for instance, may have contacted him and said, hey, what about this thing that was posted and is there anything to it? I'm inclined not to believe that came up, but you never know if some other party contacted the campaign asking him if it's true or not, or how do you respond to these allegations, and who knows what. This question about why he dropped out in the manner in which he dropped out, with the rapidity that he dropped out, is certainly curious, I think is a good way to put it. And the timing just doesn't add up, no matter how you look at it. And especially, as I said, when you look at the support that Andrew Swan had, a lot of it wouldn't have played out into delegate strength. And who knows what kind of strength he might have had among Manitoba, the young New Democrats as well, right? Since he's the candidate of record for the youth. Now, I have not yet heard from Dr. Gerard, which I find kind of strange because normally he's pretty efficient. So I'm going to do something I normally wouldn't do live on the air, but let me call his office and see if he's going to be able to make it. So just cover for me for a second, Adam. I'll do this. I'm just calling his office. We'll see if I can find out what's going on.
Sure. Folks, if you want to hear repeats of the Great Canadian Talk Show, you can listen every evening at 11. They are repeated here on Kick. Also, Sunday evenings they're on. And check our website, www.kick.fm. We have Rick, the boss, has been really good about putting all of the show archives up there. You can check it out online.
Okay, I'm told Dr. John Gerard will be calling in, but they're trying to get him back out of the house. Email from the listener who's a pot grower disputing what Premier Dewar said. Marty, I was listening to Sunday Night Repeats, the Premier's ridiculous statement about pot smokers in the suburbs underwriting street gangs. I understand the Premier lives in a suburb himself and may be privy to information I don't have. But as someone very familiar with the underground industry, I can tell you Dewar's suggestion is recklessly mendacious. I don't sell to gangbangers. I don't know any gangbangers, and I don't want to know any. As a professional grower, I can't trust them. None of the people who buy my product want anything to do with gangbangers. They buy pot from me partly because they don't have to deal with a criminal element. If marijuana wasn't illegal, we would otherwise be law-abiding citizens. I pay taxes on what I sell. Lucky he doesn't sell seeds to the States or he'd be joining Mark Emery in jail. I've never heard of street gangs running a grow-op. I know they will traffic pot because they're in the general business of trafficking contraband. Crackheads generally can't manage grow-ops. Gangbangers can't get mortgages or leases for properties to grow in. Because grows take so long to realize profits, the scurvy, thieving nature of gangbangers make them highly risky ventures. Successful grow operations require a lot of discipline and organization. Some semi-literate gangbanger who doesn't know about an honest day's work is not going to succeed at growing. Have you ever heard of the police busting a grow-up run by a native street gang? I've never thought of it that way. Gangbangers make money off pot simply because it's illegal, but it's really the last thing they want to sell you because pot isn't addictive. I do know of guys who develop crack habits. None of them are growing pot today. This is strictly anecdotal. But as an independent grower, I can tell you how crack got such a foothold in Winnipeg. Listen to this, folks, because this rings true based on my own recollections. Back in the 1980s, when indoor cultivation was starting to flourish in Winnipeg, the police targeted them specifically. Crime Stoppers had Grow Month every November. If you looked at the people arrested for grows at the time, you'll find they were mostly independents like me, unaffiliated with organized crime, and generally without prior criminal records. The bike gangs were still mainly in the importation side of drugs. That's when they bring it in like BC pot, and have long since given up on importing pot because of its inferiority to our domestic product and difficulties involved with smuggling large volumes. While the police focused on local growers, the bikers began smuggling in coke, then crack. By the time police stopped denying crack was available in Winnipeg, it was too late. Now you can find that crack in small-town Manitoba. I can only speculate on why Dewar would blame white-collar pot smokers for street gang violence. The No Doer Party have a history of policing the path of least resistance. At times, it seems they're excessively anxious about the province's image, fearing an exodus of taxpayers fed up with violence and crime. But now we see the city and province descend into barbarism, and Doer says basement bongers of Tuxedo are to blame. If he is serious, we're in trouble, because if he really believes what he's saying about pot smokers, then Dewar doesn't have a clue about what is going on here. Has Dewar always believed the rise in violent street gangs to be a consequence of suburban pot smokers? Has he misjudged the street gang problem all this time? It kind of looks that way, doesn't it? Keep up the good work. So that, I was very surprised to get that. An email from a listener who is, as he says, a very experienced, learned pot grower, knows the culture, knows the subculture, knows the history of that industry, disputing the Premier's claims that pot growing and pot selling is truly behind any of the problems we face with violent street gangs. Keeping our topic on matters provincial, I'm joined now by Dr. John Gerard, Liberal Party leader. Good afternoon, Dr. Gerard.
Good afternoon, Marty.
I was very interested to see that nobody in the mainstream media thought it was important that the province has blown $1.6 million on a botched midwifery program in Norway House. And you brought it up in the legislature. You didn't exactly get any kind of straight answers, either from the Minister of Health or the Minister of Advanced Education and Literacy. What I don't understand is they've only got 3 of the original 9 students left. And somehow the province is trying to justify how they managed to blow $1.6 million on a program that maybe is going to deliver 3 midwives.
Well, I was up in the north this summer in Wabodin and happened to meet one of the students who was really, bewailing the situation and came to me, that there's something terrible here. It was unclear whether she was going to be able to complete her program and so on and so forth. And, yeah, it was a major problem that the government, when they put this midwifery program in, didn't make sure that, in fact, there were enough obstetricians and there were going to be enough babies delivered to make it a viable program. And
in terms of the babies being delivered right now, a lot of the births, the pregnancies that maybe start in Norway House or up north, they end up being delivered in Winnipeg or Thompson. And according to a FIPA that the Liberal Party filed, the total number of babies born in Norway House in the last 5 years totals 6 and 3 is 9, high school math here, 16 births through 2008 in a 4-year period.
No, it's an average of 4 per year. Yeah, no, it's ludicrous to have a midwifery program with those sorts of numbers of births. They, of course, had a clinic, and the students learned something about the clinic looking after women in the early stages of pregnancy. But the fact of the matter is that the government blew it in not ensuring that there was going to be the obstetrics program, the delivery program that was needed to run the midwifery program.
Now, is it your suggestion, Dr. Gerard, that there should have been an obstetrician available to go in Norway House to handle births? Because I'm just sort of wondering how that would have worked. I understand what you're saying, that you need an obstetrician to do, or a GP at the very least, I guess, to do the deliveries. But I'm not quite sure what the mechanics are that would have... I see the midwifery would have gone hand in glove with a doctor being there. I'm just not sure how you think this should have worked out.
Well, I mean, you don't put a midwifery program into a center where you don't have any doctors delivering babies.
So this was a stupid idea in the first place, you're suggesting?
Yeah, I mean, they should have made sure they had doctors delivering babies, and then they could have thought about putting a midwifery program. But you put the the cart and the horse and then the cart instead of trying to put the cart in there without a horse at all.
Well, Diane McGifford, the Advanced Education Minister, was handling some of the answers on this one, and she said, I don't know why he would think midwives trained at University College of the North would be in Norway House delivering babies. They're not finished, meaning they haven't finished their education yet.
Yeah, she gave a very confusing answer, and I'm not sure that she really was up on what was happening in the program and how when she promised that initially, there were going to be up to 10 students the first year and then at least 5 students every other year. And what happened was that they had 9 students the first year, and then there were no students the following year. I mean, I don't know what happened. It's just the whole program was a disaster.
How does this cost?
It was so badly managed by the NDP. You know, I mean, the idea of having training midwives in the north is not so bad if you make the effort and do it properly. But if you don't set up the program so that it's going to work, it's terrible.
How does this cost $1.6 million?
Well, we don't have a breakdown of the accounting of that, but certainly, you know, this was a very expensive program, and you know, it was very badly designed by the NDP.
So if these three students...
The effect is, you know, it's terrible on the students who are not getting the sort of experience they were promised, on the students who dropped out, and, you know, it's not producing the students who are going to be the midwives in the north, which we needed in the first place.
This is breaking down if the 3 graduate to $500,000 to produce a midwife?
Well, that's what it breaks down to. There is no escaping it, and it's pretty expensive.
This is ridiculous. How much? Was this a situation where maybe the training should have been provided in Winnipeg and then down the line midwives could have been stationed or supplied up north? Was this just sort of done bass-ackwards?
I mean, the whole design of the program was problematic, and although, I mean, the concept, you're training midwives in the north, that's not a bad idea because we need midwives in the north. You're trying to get people from the north into the program. That's not a bad idea because we know if you get people from the north, then they're more likely to stay in the north and provide the services. But the way they set up the program was a disaster from square one. I mean, the NDP just were incompetent, right, in trying to set up this program in a reasonable way.
Now, we have a listener question for you. I know you've got to take off very shortly, but let me just try to get this question up out of the email file and see if it's something that you can field. And, of course, you know, of all the times. Ask Dr. Gerard why there needs to be an OB, and where's the nurse practitioners in the north? What's your position on that?
Okay. Well, you need to have a physician who is skilled at, in fact, you probably have to have 2 physicians who are skilled at delivering babies if you're going to have a program. Mm-hmm. All right? And you always are going to need to have physicians as backup to the midwives. Right? Now, this will be, even if you've got a low-risk delivery program, that if you've got a center like Norway House, you can't be taking a baby when you get into trouble with the delivery and flying them out to Thompson halfway through the delivery. That's not going to work. So you've got to have, if you've got a midwifery program, you've got to have physician backup. And that's the part that they didn't plan for appropriately, and the physician backup is necessary to have the deliveries there to start with. And once you do that, you know, I had a very interesting conversation with an obstetrician who worked with 4 midwives very, very successly. And, you know, this was a program, and the only thing was that, you know, he was there for backup, but they did, they did the bulk of the work, and he was just there when they needed for a, complicated delivery.
I know that you're short on time today, Dr. Gerard. I thank you very much for spending the time to explain this $1.6 million boondoggle in terms of the midwife program up north. And I'm going to keep an eye on this and see what kind of further explanations might come forward from either Madame Oswald or Madame McGifford explaining, well, again, it's poor planning for sure, but that's $500,000 per midwife. That doesn't seem like a reasonable cost to the taxpayer whatsoever.
No, I mean, it was a disaster in the way it was set up. If it had been set up properly, and we trained midwives. It actually could have saved dollars because women could have stayed in the north and get deliveries up in the north more than they are now. But the way it's happened now, it's just been a disaster. The NDP just don't seem to be able to competently manage programs like this.
I appreciate the time you've taken, Dr. Gerard. I'm sure we'll have you on the program again in the next couple of weeks on this or some other matter involving the legislature.
Okay, very good.
Thanks very much, John Gerard, joining us from the Manitoba Legislature today. Speaking of disasters and moving off provincial things for 1 second, Adam, you got a call from a listener about what's going on with the, we talked about the diamond lanes on Portage Avenue, the mayor defending them that were just installed.
Yep.
What's going on out there?
Apparently, I guess just today there was cars backed up past Portage or past Broadway, and despite all of these cars being backed up way past, probably through all of Broadway, the guy didn't see a single bus in like half an hour that he was on that route.
The cars are backed up going towards Polo Park down Broadway, he's saying?
I think it's...
Or going towards downtown?
I think going towards Polo Park. I don't know. I got a couple of calls about this. And
already?
Yeah.
And the mayor was defending this on this program.
Yeah.
And people like Andrew Swanson defend this as part of the active transportation commitment.
Yeah.
And it's already this without any snow flying, without any blizzards, without rain, in perfect weather.
Or construction. Because there's no
construction. Yeah, because they finished the construction. Can you imagine if there was construction going on down Portage still?
It'd become a parking lot.
It is a parking lot.
Well, yeah, it's becoming a parking lot.
Backed up all the way from Polo Park to Broadway. You know, I was going to save... This is an issue also on McPhillips, and I got an example of it, and I'm going to have to get to the break, and we're going to have to do the crime report. So I think tomorrow... I'm going to be following up on that with regards to diamond lanes and, as a matter of fact, diamond lanes and taxis, as a matter of fact. Oh, tomorrow's going to be good. And Kelly Den tomorrow with any luck, and Tall East of CDI College, and Adam's on the phone again. A brief sports note, because I've got to kill a minute here. So let me mention this. I was very saddened to see the notice of the death of former Winnipeg Blue Bomber cornerback and punt returner Doug Strong. Doug had just started helping out coaching the Grant Park Pirates football team, died very suddenly at the age of 63. Doug Strong was a first-round draft choice of the Bombers. I think he was out of University of Western Ontario back in 1969, had some great seasons, first couple of years of his career, 69, 70, 71. 70, I think it was in 72, was it 72? He broke his leg. And was never quite the same player after that, but always had a great zest for life and a positive attitude. It was very sad indeed to see Doug Strong, a notice that Doug Strong passed away at far too young of an age. There's another call there, Adam?
Yeah, just to revisit the bus lanes thing, a caller called in saying that he was going southbound and then he had to take a right hand onto Portage, and apparently he had to drive 4 blocks in a diamond lane before anybody would let him in. Because it's either stop in a diamond lane as a passenger vehicle or
not get
blocked out. So if people are driving on Portage, be courteous and let folks in out of the diamond lanes.
All right, and I see it's lighting up again.
Yes.
Let me make this suggestion while you grab that call. Let me make this suggestion to our listeners. As you know, this radio program has stood almost alone in standing up for the rights of drivers. And this is not just private passenger vehicles. I'm talking about trucks, vehicles, taxis, couriers, etc., handy transit, etc. We're going to continue to do that, but you've got to do a couple of things to stand up for yourself, to flex your own muscle. If you're stuck in a diamond lane, you have to call your city or not stuck in a diamond lane, stuck because of diamond lanes. You have to call your city councilor. You have to put the pressure on Harvey Smith, Mike Pactican, Scott Fielding, Mike O'Shaughnessy, Harry Lazarenko, Jenny Gerbassi, Dan Vandell, Justin Swandell, Gord Steves, Lillian Thomas, Russ Wyatt, if he can tear himself away from Steve Ashen's campaign, Jeff Brawadi, that's right, Jeff, I'm putting your name in there too, Bill Clement, Councillor Nordman. Many of them have been guests on this program. Some of them I know listen or their staff listens. You have to take the time, even if you phone after hours and just leave a voice message. I was stuck on Portage Avenue because of the diamond lanes. This isn't working. Fix it. I'm stuck on because of the diamond lanes on. They've just put in a diamond lane on Goulet now, which I find completely incomprehensible. And I got another email from Anders Swanson. He and I have been having an email exchange back and forth about some points. And remember, we read the email that Graham Natchik sent the mayor specifically about the open house that pertains to bike paths, and that also affects traffic. But clearly, when it comes to active transportation, they've shut drivers out of the process. There's no consideration for drivers. All this concern about greenhouse gases, and they got more people going nowhere, spewing forth carbon monoxide than ever before. Well, as a representative of the pollution lobby, we don't want to be stuck in traffic. We don't want to be burning more gas than necessary. But this is the standing joke about the bus lanes. Even if they change the diamond lanes to going from 4:30 to 5:30, even that would help. But it was predictable by anybody who knows anything about traffic that this was going to happen. And now we see Portage Avenue's become a mess, and this is before the snow flies. So you can email us, talkatkick.fm. You can certainly call in, 780-5425. But I'm encouraging all of you, and tell your neighbors. Tell your friends that listen to Cosmo or Lori Lancaster or CBC. There's only one radio outlet, one radio station, one radio program that cares, that actively does anything to stand up for drivers. This is one of the things I was going to challenge Harvey Smith on today. I will challenge Councillor Smith next Monday. I will challenge Harry Lazarenko. I'll challenge Mike Pactican. I will challenge the mayor again. I will challenge Jeff Brawadi. I will get Scott Fielding in here too. We will continue to pressure them. I want to see all these traffic studies tabled. I want to see the proof that this is really going to help things. Just wait till you start being late to pick up your kids from childcare. We'll see how sensitive the mayor and all his green cohorts at City Hall are to that. But besides talking to us, besides having people listen to this program when we have city councilors on and hold them to account, you have to put a little bit of pressure yourself. Dig up your city council. If you don't know your city councilor, email me. I'll dig it up for you. Give me your address. You have to call your city councilors and start putting the heat on them. Big time. Big time. Or phone. Here, he's even better. Use your voice-activated cell phone because you don't want to break the law. Call 311 and register your complaint right now. Flood 311. Make them earn their pay. I'm just saying. This has got to be done. We know that the diamond lane in front of Great West Life was an absolute waste. Spirited Kenny got the transit to admit buses weren't running late going south. And then they lied. They changed their story and lied. And now the buses are running on time. We know that diamond lane was nothing but piggish behavior by transit. Because they think that they're entitled. The Green Lobby thinks they're entitled. You're entitled to fair treatment on the roads, too, and we will stand up for you, but stand up for yourself. Call 311, call your counselor, get a hold of us. We'll find out who your counselor is. Go ahead, Adam.
What?
I thought there was another call or something that you needed to reflect.
No. Another matter.
Another matter. Okay,
yes.
We'll leave that one until after the break. Words from our sponsors. First, we'll have the weather update from Adam. Then I'll come back to the Crime Court's public safety update. Exclusive information about what went on in that mayhem on Toronto. The kind of beating that was laid down, the violence inflicted on innocent victims at a birthday party. Sickening, and you won't want to miss it. We'll be right back with that. But first, time for the weather update with Adam.
Currently in Winnipeg, it's mainly sunny and 11 degrees. Today, we saw a high of 13. Tonight, though, we'll see a clear of low +3, winds southeast at 30. Tomorrow, sunny again, winds southeast 40, gusting to 60, so it'll be a bit of a windy day and a high of 16. And looks like it'll be much the same through the rest of your week. Currently in Winnipeg, it's sunny and 11 degrees. Today's weather update is brought to you by Stephen Hanks Premier Massage Group. 15 years of experience tailoring treatment precisely for you. Call 770-4414. That's 770-4414. Or go online to www.massagegroup.com.
Hey Drew, I watch SportsCenter and read the newspaper, but I just can't get enough hockey news.
Funny you should mention that. I have 2 great sources for all your hockey news.
Wowzers, tell me all about them.
www.illegalcurve.com and the illegalcurve.com radio show.
I don't know. I don't really want to listen to you talking all night.
Don't worry, little girl. It's not just me on the radio show. We talk to the most informed people in the hockey world.
Like who?
Journalists, players, general managers. If they're making news, we're interviewing them.
The illegalcurve.com radio show, 7 to 9 on Wednesdays, only on Kick FM.
This is 92.9 Kick FM.
CKIC FM, broadcasting live from Red River College in Winnipeg.
And at 104.7 on Shaw Cable FM.
92.9 Kick FM, Winnipeg's indie station.
1 in every 2 Canadians will either need blood or know someone who will. Red River College will be running blood donor clinics at the Princess Street campus in the multipurpose room and the Notre Dame campus in the South Gym Thursday, October 1st from 11:30 to 3:30. The Canadian Blood Services prefers if you make an appointment, but some walk-in spaces are available. Please call 1-888-2-DONATE. That's 1-888-236-6283 today to make that appointment.
Support the Great Canadian Talk Show and shop for our exclusive merchandise at cafepress.com/kicktalk.
A stylish collection of men's and women's t-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, barbecue aprons, infant, toddler, and kids wear. There's coffee mugs and beer steins, stickers, and more. Just go to cafepress.com/kicktalk and show the world you get the real story. From the Great Canadian Talk Show on Winnipeg's indie station, 92.9 Kick FM.
The Great Canadian Talk Show.
Just a minute, ladies and gentlemen. I think something is happening.
92.9 Kick FM.
Okay, 508 here on the Great Canadian Talk Show. Before I get to the crime report, since we're on the subject of traffic, letter to the editor today in the Free Press. With reference to the proposed Israeli bridge project, it is most encouraging to learn via media that senior politicians know how to design transportation bridges in back rooms behind closed doors. Before a stamp of final approval is placed on the design, however, it will be even more encouraging if they actually held public meetings to consult with the people that will be impacted by your design, namely the residents, businesses, and councillors of the East Kildonan, Transcona area. A comment from a listener who spotted this letter to the editor. That's very detailed. Let's see. So far, we've had the announcements about a sports field on Portage Avenue. That would be the Gordon Bell Field of Dreams. And a $200 million bridge to replace the Israeli freeway. The only problem is neither project is real yet. Kate said he sent a memo of understanding to do her last Wednesday or Thursday and couldn't say any more until he got it signed. Obviously, there's no signature yet. I think somebody in government pointed out it was all easy for someone leaving the province to promise an extra $60 million for a bridge, but harder for those who are staying and have to come up with the money. Also, a listener emailing me this about entitled "Dumb Cyclists," and I'm going to have more tomorrow about some correspondence going on between Andrew Swanson of the bike lobby and Graham Natchik having some observations about what Swanson is saying. This is in the course of a discussion back and forth that we're having, an extension of the interview that was replayed yesterday. 11:50 p.m. last night, lone cyclists, plural, riding north on Fort within the white bike lane. No other traffic on the road at all, but the cyclist remained in his designated bike lane, then rode through the red light at Graham. Can you believe that? Well, of course you can. This is Winnipeg, so you know that this is what goes on here all the time. As well, there's all these emails we had yesterday, again, in reference to the replay of the interview. One emailer saying that absolutely there should be, and this was them listening to what was being said yesterday on the air. There absolutely should be insurance required of cyclists and some sort of enforced licensing, etc. And it's certainly hard to argue with that point of view. But there was another email from a listener about where they I think that, I don't know if I'm using the correct term here. They costed out. Is it singular or plural? They costed out, I think, is what it is. What the return is to us in terms of the how much it's costing essentially per cyclist. I've already broken down, for instance, midwives is like $500,000 each, the way the provinces run that program. which is, of course, completely ridiculous. Here, I'll open this up, because this impacts public safety too, in my humble opinion. This person was listening yesterday. Andrew Swanson commented 70% of people are in favor of bike paths. I'm seriously concerned this number is flawed, and I'd like to see the report that this number comes from, because based upon my information experience attending the U of M, living in the Maples, a brother lives in Wolseley, and I worked in the core area for 6 years. The highest percentage of people who advocate bike lanes would be 30 to 40% absolute maximum. Given that I'm including groups that tend to be considered more likely to advocate support, like the poor, the young, and suburban commuters, I have a hard time accepting 70% as a credible number. I'd like to know if this study was done in Winnipeg. Not Canadian cities, not small towns, but Winnipeg. Given we're talking about sums at $20 million plus range, I don't think it would be unreasonable for groups to spend $50,000 to $20,000 to conduct a valid study applicable to our city, not some place like Kelowna, where factors such as climate, infrastructure, traffic patterns, and all not being affected by the changes in traffic. The second one I would like to raise with Andrew Swanson is he stated he was in favor of metrics. What metrics have been established given current usage? And since he believes everyone will use this new infrastructure he's advocating, what numbers would justify the new paths? 10,000 people, 1,000 people? At I think I said $20,000 earlier, $20 million. At $20 million per 1,000 people means it's $20,000 per person is the price we should bear, as opposed to the 50,000 people using any section of roadways currently. I do not think I would be the only person who feels this would be an unreasonable use of funds. I wonder if anyone in the city, the advocates for a bike path, whoever, would be willing to agree that if they cannot demonstrate a significantly improved traffic volume, then the bike path should revert to their original use. Keep up the good work, Marty. So that's the kind of feedback we get from our listeners on this whole transportation subject. We'll have lots more tomorrow. Diamond lanes, bike paths, you name it. We'll be covering it. Now, crime courts and public safety update. Oh, where did the gang database be? Oh, it seems that only the Conservative Party is asking the question that the mainstream media is ignoring. Last week, buried in the story of the NDP's new gang strategy, nobody could explain, I went through this on Friday, where the gang database went. The Conservative Party put out a press release pointing out the NDP's come up with their 7th new gang strategy. They're only going to monitor 50 gang members in the province. Kelvin Gertz and the critics saying, how do police know which gang members are active and who's deserving of being in the top 50? Based on the old numbers, which used to be 3,000, tracking 50 will be a drop in the bucket. Where did that gang database go? Why is nobody answering the question? Why is nobody in the mainstream media asking the question? We paid for it already, as was pointed out by a listener on this program on Friday. We paid for a gang database. It disappeared. Is Jakawatsky responsible? Is Chief McCaskill responsible? Why are we paying for the same work to be done twice? Now, whether a gang database would have made a big difference with what the police were dealing with the past few days, I'm not sure. Break-ins, robberies, tasering of suspects. Most troubling of all the cases that came up over the course of the weekend, the birthday party gone wrong on Toronto. CTV Winnipeg, Stacey Ashley with an excellent story detailing what happened. Somebody was tossed out of a birthday party over at 600 Block of Toronto because, well, you'll hear why, and returned with some so-called friends. This is an email from an insider, somebody with information about what happened on Toronto Street. And you know what? I don't have to even do any more preface. This is the story of the inner city of Winnipeg right now. There were 6 people in total at the house during the attacks. 2 females, one was 16, one was 19. The 19-year-old was upstairs in the house, the other was in the basement. There are 2 males, age 19 and 22. One was upstairs, the other was in the basement. There were also 2 disabled men in the house. I think these are, I'm not sure if they're physically disabled. There's clearly somebody who appeared to have intellectual disability that was interviewed on CTV. They have severe, here we are. They have severe mental disabilities and were also assaulted in the incident. You hear this? People with and this one fellow was clearly slow. No, not a threat to anybody. The young man that was removed from the house was a party crasher. He came to the house as he had been there on another day. I was told nobody knew him or invited him. He just joined in. He saw a guy sleeping on a couch and had vomited. For no apparent reason, he went over to the fellow sleeping on the couch and started choking him. The girl started screaming and telling him to leave. He went downstairs to where the guys were and started yelling at them. There were about 20 people in the house at that point. An argument broke out and fighting began as he refused to leave, so he was physically put out of the house. A short time later, the party dispersed, and that was all that was left was the 6 people described above. The last person that left the party did not close the door properly. The uninvited guest had returned with 3 other males and a female. They were carrying a bat-a-hammer and a hunting knife. I think I've also heard that there was a bat. The first person they attacked was the young man and girl in the basement. They received the most severe of the beatings. The young man was hit and stabbed over 37 times, including in the back of the head. The young girl had a wound across her leg that required 56 stitches. The couple that was upstairs heard the screaming. The 22-year-old man ran out the front of the house. The girl went downstairs to help. Yes, the girl. She was hit in the head with a baseball bat, splitting her head open. The 2 disabled men were also beat. The perps, I've been told, are 25 to 30 years old, Aboriginal, between 5'10 and 6'2", between 185 and 225 pounds. The initial party pooper is named Gary or G. I'm told there was a warrant for his arrest after the incident. One of the men that committed the assault was in the back of a cruiser, but for some reason they released him. I'm getting more and more information as time goes on. That's the inner city of Winnipeg this past weekend. The National Post with a story about, and it's, how do I put this? It was clearly, the writers, the reporters' perceptions. They tied together a lot of incidents that aren't necessarily related, but to the outsider, provide an overall picture of the city of Winnipeg, the level of violence, including the baby beatings and the beheading on the bus, etc. An overall unflattering picture of this city. And whereas we're being called the new Detroit, or as bad as Detroit, in fact, I found a blog post from a year ago. That made that statement.
To quote the Weaker Thans,
yes,
this is one great city.
It sure is. From behindblueskies.blogspot.com, August 1st, 2008, called Downtown Devitalization. The city, this a year ago, recently put up a webpage advising citizens to walk in pairs, stay in the light, walk facing traffic, stay out of lanes, don't park in poorly lit areas, keep valuables out of view in your vehicle, don't wear jewelry. It read more like something you should see in Detroit or New York City, not a city of $700,000. One of our Russian students was frightened to go downtown anytime and said, where do these people come from? What is wrong with them? Why are they always high? We don't have people like that in our towns. People love to go downtown in Russia. In Russia! That's where you meet people, shop at the markets, do stuff safely. I guess we have a long way to go to catch up to Russia, huh, says this blogger. A coworker said, it's getting worse every year. I got to get out of this place. Most people hate our downtown, period. No decent tax-paying citizen wants to stay downtown in the Exchange District outside of 9 to 5, not on your life. Well, in this case, the violent incident happening in the west end of the city on Toronto. There was incident robbery on Kennedy. Police investigating, ended up tasering another suspect for something. I'm not quite clear on what they were a suspect of. Another police officer run over, it appears accidentally, by a motorist while apprehending a stolen car thief, a 51-year-old, not a punk this time. Car originally stolen in the Bonner Avenue area of North Kildone, and the chase ending up at Mountain and Salter. They got video cameras there, remember? The house that was firebombed across the street? Yeah, this said National Post, Canadian Press story. A quote from somebody that was quoted in the story. A friend of mine is in hospital after being mugged by 2 people for $7. Crime is out of control, particularly random attacks. Rick Linden, he said that the University of Winnipeg, tall forehead, said that it was all in your minds a couple of years ago. Winnipeg is a high crime city, he said. At a recent conference Linden attended, his peers made jokes of Winnipeg, saying that's a city I don't want to go to because of all the crime. I wonder if Rick Linden is going to ask where the gang database went, how it disappeared. Now, in the National Post story, which I think was the CP story, if I remember correctly, and published in the National Post, Harry Lazarenko was quoted as saying he feels that the army has to be called in. It's a war zone out here. Commenter on this story on the Free Press website, where is where is my MLA? George Hicks lives over on Hallett Street, not. He's out in the comfort and security of St. Vital. Only time you see his face on a brochure at election time. I don't think you can find his tuchus with both hands, let alone his constituency office on Main Street. So people recognizing lack of political leadership, lack of accountability, a sense of people being overrun, overtaken. How bad is the lawlessness in this city right now? On Saturday night, the fire hall at 1710 Grosvenor, about 9 o'clock at night, they went out on a fire call. While they were gone, someone or a group of someones went into the fire hall, rifled their lockers, stole 3 wallets and a truck. The question begs to be asked, what kind of pukes do we have in this city? Sneaking into a fire hall and ripping off firefighters while they're off saving lives? Well, heck, look at the lessons they're learning from our courts. Here's a case that we discussed at the time it happened. Tammy Parisienne was drinking in a Bannatyne Avenue apartment last July. There was an argument because they weren't going to share her drugs with her. She threatened to burn the suite down. She left the building, set the building on fire, was seen screaming, "Burn, baby, burn." She supposedly put the fire out herself. Her lawyer said she was visiting her mother when she met up with some friends, quote, and things went awry. Her lawyer said, how come everybody blames their friends? This scared her as well. She just want to imagine what could have happened. Judge Tim Preston gave this woman double credit of 4 months for time served in order to serve 1 more month in custody. So she gets, it says 5 months in jail. It's really 3 months. 3 months for trying to burn down an apartment building when somebody, her friends, wouldn't share their drugs with her. Well, compared to that, breaking into a fire hall and stealing wallets of firefighters, that's small potatoes. Meanwhile, we go back to the situation with the OK Grocery. Now, you got to watch carefully how the media slants these stories. The police putting out a press release asking for a witness who is seen on the videotape to come forward. Now, something's gone wrong with this story. I don't quite understand. Originally, the way it came out was that Beardy was in the OK Grocery at Alexander and Sherbrooke on a Sunday, was delivered to the hospital on Tuesday and did not recover from her injuries and expired 3 days later. Now, supposedly, she was in the store on Tuesday, was involved in an assault in the store that day and went straight to the hospital. How this timeline has changed, I don't know, but police are still looking for witnesses. Now, I watched Sheila North Wilson's report on CBC last night where she said the police had witnesses, blah, blah, blah. I don't know where that comes from because they're still looking for a witness. Listen to the slanted writing from the Free Press. Police are looking for a woman who may have witnessed a deadly assault on Geraldine Beardy, the woman whose family fears was killed after trying to shoplift a can of Click. Well, Gordon Singler's already reported it was more than just a can of Click. The Free Press ignoring that. The woman who family fears was killed. Oh, that's not slanted reporting. Beardy was assaulted during a shoplifting incident. And then they go on to say she was allegedly confronted by an employee and assaulted. She later died of her injuries, which included blunt force. No, she died of some injuries. They don't know if it was the injury sustained in the store. How could they say she was assaulted, but she was allegedly confronted? It's one or the other. How do the police have witnesses, but are still looking for more witnesses? In Ontario, there's a case involving a shop owner, an Asian storekeeper, who recognized a shoplifter. They chased him down, tied him up, held him outside of the store, caught this fellow outside of the store. This victim of crime, Jason Kenney, the National Citizenship Minister, is sticking up for this Chinese business owner. He's losing $50,000 a year to shoplifting and employs 10 people. The problem, the criminal code doesn't allow you to apprehend shoplifters outside the premises. Kenny's saying he'll look at whether Section 494 of the criminal code, where shopkeepers have right to use reasonable means to protect their property, should be amended. Shoplifters who steal with impunity are harming family-run businesses like the Lucky Moose Food Mart. That's a federal minister speaking out. The thief returned to the store, and the storekeep, a fellow named Shen, chased him down when he returned to the store, bound his hands and feet, put him in a delivery truck, called police. Anthony Bennett pled guilty got 10 days in pretrial custody, was given another 30 days in jail. Mr. Chen was charged with kidnapping, forcible confinement, assault, and carrying a concealed weapon because he had a box cutter in his fanny pack. Like, that's unusual when you're taking deliveries of toilet paper at the back of the store. 7,000 people have signed a petition on a website in support of Mr. Chen. The law turns store owners into indictable criminals. They attempt to apprehend a shoplifter outside the store premises. Well, in this case, it appears that Beardy was apprehended inside the store. That didn't stop Colleen Simard. The Free Press columnist couldn't help herself. She went to the store, made sure to mention she saw a bottle of cooking wine on the shelf for $2.19. Is she intimating that somehow that there's that this is fueling problems with alcoholism in the neighborhood? Because cooking a wine, that I understand, is basically de-alcoholized. Just throws that into the middle of nowhere. Items are marked up a bit. The headline, traffic brisk at Fateful Food Store. How many people did Colleen Simard write about seeing inside the store that weren't, working there? Zero. So first they said, the Free Press sets up the headline, traffic brisk at Fateful Food Store. Simard looks around. News coverage is shifting. Taking matters in your own hands is wrong. I haven't heard anything about Beardy, a 29-year-old mother of 3, being violent. I haven't heard anything about her being a good mother either, Toots. The anonymous comments about Beardy on the website, on CBC's website, don't show a whole lot of intelligence, posted by a bunch of yahoos. What nobody's saying is that Geraldine Beardy was a victim of poverty long before she died. It's never acceptable to use violence against anyone, whether it's a baby, a woman, or a man. I guess Colleen Simard's never been trapped in her store, a taxi cab, by some idiot, some drunken or high fool. I'm going to refute that right now. It is acceptable to use violence against some people. If Colleen Simard doesn't believe me, you go work a shift as a cab driver on a weekend, on a welfare check weekend, and see what happens. See what happens when somebody doesn't want to get out of your taxi, or get out of your store, or get out of your bar or lounge or restaurant. How can we not be outraged when a woman is allegedly killed by a violent attack with a baseball bat? So based on an unproven allegation where the police have not concluded their investigation whatsoever, where the timeline is shift, she says that MKO Grand Chief David Harper, who is not only related to Beardy, but is also related to the woman who was sitting with Beardy. It's like Beardy was his niece, but the person who was with Beardy in the hospital was his aunt. So he's related to everybody involved in the story. He's using, I don't know what funding, to hire a lawyer to try to bump the charges up. And Colleen Simard jumps on the pile. If I was Harper, I'd go further and call for First Nations people to boycott the store. Picket that store, make it public knowledge that vigilante behavior is unacceptable. So here's Colleen Simard, adept at nothing, experienced clearly with nothing involving actual commerce in this life, calling this vigilante behavior and calling for a boycott. A listener replying, classic Simard media thuggery. She ignores the word allegedly every time, as well as the violence some natives perpetrate on store owners. I think it's unconscionable to use her position to destroy people's livelihoods without any good evidence they're guilty of anything. Well, yeah. In fact, a commenter on the Free Press website saying, if I were the, here, let me open it up. I'll read to you precisely what the people who read the Free Press, not nearly as dumb as some of their columnists come across sometimes. Simard's hypothesis rejected by many Free Press readers. Colleen, your calls for a boycott is as reasonable as calls to boycott First Nations communities to stop stealing. Wouldn't a responsible journalist wait for the outcome of an investigation and trial before turning community members against the store owner? Stop making excuses for stealing. Painting this woman as likely desperate to attempt to steal from the store with security cameras is very insulting to the intelligence of your readers. Her mother stated she struggled with alcoholism. You failed to mention that. Why was a woman who was on a medical trip, financed by a taxpayer, so desperate to steal click from the grocery store? Well, of course, Gordon St. Clair was claiming that she might have been stealing sandwiches and a couple of cans of Click to feed her homeless friends. It's not a question of poverty or neglect or even racism. She likely used her money to feed her addiction instead of housing and feeding herself. Police don't have the time to go after someone accused of grand theft spam. So I can understand the frustration of these store owners in high-risk neighborhoods. Another commenter, quit with the excuse, I am poor. I deserve to steal and rob people because I'm poor. Stop blaming the white man for your people's woes and start preaching to them to start being accountable for their actions. I wonder if under Steve Ashton's proposed Dignity Act that would be considered hate speech, the writings of Colleen Simard, that is. where everything boils down to the so-called majority somehow bearing the guilt of the misdeeds of the minority. Another person saying, when does it stop being petty crime, as you say, Colleen? Are you condoning stealing? Where does it end? Another person, a poverty crime. Did you just make that up? Another commenter saying, well, it's the same commenter, what a racist article. Then the money line from, in my humble opinion, if I was the owner of that food store, the story makes calls to boycott, I would seriously consider launching legal action against the free press. Another listener of this program suggesting that perhaps it's time for the newspaper that Samard is the publisher of, Urban NDN, that should be boycotted. Another listener suggesting the free press should be boycotted for publishing garbage like this that slants the facts, that ignores the nature of the allegations, that they use the term traffic brisk at Fateful Food Store to create the illusion that it's busy and therefore could sustain a boycott somehow. Unbelievable. That's the level of discourse in this city by the apologists, the poverty industry activists and sympathizers, that it's okay to steal because you're poor. That's the excuse every gangbanger uses in front of the court, isn't it? Oh, I come from a poor background. My parents this, alcoholism that, residential schools this. I needed to steal that car. I needed to break in and steal that stereo. I needed to go back into that house where I was dissed and stab somebody 57 times. How much worse is it going to get? And again, in all of this, have you heard anything? Anything? Where's the Manitoba Warriors? They with the wisdom, the free press that endorsed the Manitoba Warriors. We can learn from their wisdom. Where are they? Where's Professor Alabama Jim Silver and the other leaders of the left? They are nowhere to be heard. But if that was an Aboriginal storekeeper, and the person alleged to have been shoplifting had been white or Korean or something, just ask yourself, what would the reaction have been? All right, email from a listener. Hi, Marty, I'm a regular listener of your show. How do these things happen? Do the tall foreheads not understand the world around them? Every time you do the crime courts report, it's like deja vu every single day. Where is the accountability? I'm still young, and these absolutely horrid crimes keep happening more and more. I have to wonder whether I'll remain in the city in years to come. Keep up the good work. Ask the questions others don't ask. Well, I can tell you, we're going to continue to ask the questions that others won't ask, and we'll have more of the same tomorrow. I'm sorry to say, because I know that it isn't going to quit. We'll see what happens. As a matter of fact, an email from another listener. I'm going to OK Supermarket. I'm going to spend $100. So much for Colleen Samard's call for a boycott. That concludes the Crime Court's Public Safety Update, brought to you by the Winnipeg Police Association. The WPA supports raising awareness of public safety and supports campus radio in Winnipeg.
Feeling a bit behind? Keep up with the Great Canadian Talk Show online on your time. Here's how. Listen to the live broadcast and replays streamed on our website, www.kick.fm, or read our blog at tgcts.blogspot.com, or join our Facebook group. Search for The Great Canadian Talk Show on Facebook and you'll find us. The Great Canadian Talk Show on Winnipeg's indie station, 92.9 Kick FM.
Okay, Adam.
Yeah, sorry.
Just grab the phone, because that'll be. It's still ringing probably, and that'll be Frank the Italian Barber. So just let Frank know we're calling. I hope. Tomorrow on the program, Tal East, the director of CDI College. Hopefully she's recovered from her flu bug, and she'll be joining us. Kelly Den after 5 o'clock. Lots about traffic, bike lanes, bike paths. I'm also going to review now the election race. The race to succeed Gary Dewar is down to 2. Not exactly a big number. Maybe it's time to remind you all of what they've said and done when it comes to the election scam of 1999, eh? So we'll move that to Wednesday's file, put the big circle around it. Okay. Frank, you're on line 2?
Marty.
Frank, just hang on a second. Let me do this other piece of business here, okay? But stay on the line.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. As I mentioned, those of you tuning in now, you did not miss Councillor Harvey Smith. He had a cancel. He'll be with us next Monday on the program. On Thursday, a special, very special story we're bringing you about the Public Trustee's Office, especially if you have elderly parents. You want to listen to this. You think the public trustee's office is doing, the public good. Not always. And there's a lot of gaps in their accountability, a lot of problems where their lawyer will have written this family saying one thing, and then they say, well, that's not really our policy, or where the family's told something and their manual says something completely different. This is a startling story. I spent 3 hours researching it today. That will be an exclusive Great Canadian Talk Show story, all about the public trustee. This family, the couple married for over, let me see now. Well, more than 50 years. This is not some. This is just a. I can't even come up with the adjectives to describe my shock at how many different things went wrong, including the medical care of the family member that fell under the control of the public trustee. So that's on Thursday. And Roller Girls. I don't know if they're going to be in the studio, but we're going to be doing something about the girls' roller derby. We're going to tie it in with Whip It, the Drew Barrymore flick that's coming out. And those that have listened to the program are well aware that I'm one of the few people in Canada that followed roller derby when it was on television here. Roller derby and roller games. Canadian All-Stars, Paul the Bear Rupert, Diane Severson, Skinny Minnie Miller. My dad got me a Skinny Minnie Miller autograph when he was driving cab in the 70s. So we're going to have all that. On Friday, we're trying to line up a special guest from, we might be doing a giveaway of an energy drink. I want to make sure he can be lined up for Friday. But we're looking at something special for Friday. And, of course, John Waldman will be joining us from Slam Sports. And This Week in History with Professor Levinsky. Now, in Blue Bomber history this week, you ready for this, Frank?
I could imagine, but go right ahead.
Thank you. In 1953, the Bombers lost to Saskatchewan Roughriders. Jack Jacobs had 309 yards passing. The Bombers tried to rush the ball exactly 0 times in the second half.
Really?
0 times in the second half. They did what they could, Jack Jacobs, but ultimately it was just too obvious they were passing every down. In 1955, Lorne Benson scored on a TD pass from Leo Lewis. Leo Lewis scored on a 32-yard run. Buddy Leak scored a TV. He started the game, the quarterback, Buddy Leak, on the bench to be able to look over how Calgary's defense was. The Bombers won 25-6. How many times when you go through Bomber history do you see things like Leo Lewis, the halfback, throwing a touchdown pass? A lot of trick plays in those days. And it's one of the reasons why the Bombers have such deep roots in this community, because the teams were so exciting to watch going back to the Indian Jack Jacobs and Leo Lewis days. 1960, the Bombers' perfect season came to an end at the hands of the Eskimos. A dismal performance. Eskimo beat them 15-2. Charlie Shepard, Choo-Choo Shepard, with 2 punt singles. The Bombers in 1960, a great football team, did not go to the Grey Cup. In 1965, Kenny Payne was hurt. The defensive back, Dick Thornton, threw a touchdown pass to Dr. Ken Nielsen and ran for 2 other TDs. One of the great players of all time was and highly underrated, the Bomber offensive and defensive star, and he went on to do the same with the Argos, running, receiving, quarterbacking, punting. Dickie Thornton, despite the heroics of Dick Thornton filling in for Kenny Payne, the Argos in 1965, so that's 34 years ago this week? 44 years ago this week. No, 34.
No, 44.
44. Well, how time flies when you're having fun. Bombers went down to defeat 24-22. Now, Frank the Italian Barber joins us on the phone very quickly. You caught 2 football games this weekend. What was the experience at Ivor Wynne Stadium in Hamilton?
When the Tiger Cats got creamed by Montreal.
Yes, well, but you didn't care because you were pulling for the home team, were you?
I was going for the home team, but I give the fans in Hamilton credit. They sure want the team to pull a fast one, but they were still cheering. Doesn't matter what was the final score, they were still cheering for the team.
I've always heard that Ivor Wynne is a terrible stadium. What was your impression?
It is. Me personally, I don't want to criticize the city, but where they put their stadium is like putting the Olympic Stadium at the north end.
Well, maybe the area was better and then it deteriorated, but I see what you're saying. So that's tough for the team then, eh? To draw?
Yeah. It's more where they put it. It was more residential than anywhere else.
But it's not a good kind of residential neighborhood, you're saying?
No.
Now, I take a look at the NFL weekend this weekend. The Detroit Lions, you predicted that they would win a game this year, and you were right. The Redskins thoroughly embarrassed by the Lions. Did you win any money on that one, Frank?
No. Unfortunately, I missed by 2 games again for the 3rd week in a row.
Oh, that's not too good. I watched the Vikings-49ers game. A lot of 49ers fans very disappointed. Brett Favre with a brilliant touchdown pass in basically the second last play.
I couldn't.
There's a game that cost Frank his ticket, folks.
Yeah, San Fran was one of them.
Uh-huh.
My favorite team. I don't know how they could put me down, but they were one of two teams that caused me the tickets.
Now, meanwhile, you were in. Is this the first time you've gone to an NFL game, Frank?
Second time.
Second time, and you were at Rich Stadium in Buffalo.
Yes, it was.
And the home team, just like Hamilton, the home team not faring very well. The New Orleans Saints winning by 20 points.
New Orleans, I'm predicting, could do something all the way to the Super Bowl.
Really?
That is the way that they were doing, especially the quarterback and the running back. I think there's teams out there better watch it. I'm telling you.
Really? And this is coming from a guy who's pulling for the Giants.
Yeah, exactly.
What was the game atmosphere like? Did you walk past like the whole tailgate party scene in the parking lot?
Well, I walked I parked my vehicle 30 blocks away from the stadium, and every block that I passed, people were drinking, having fun, barbecuing.
Mm-hmm.
Even at the stadium, there was at least half a dozen of limousines that people were sitting down, barbecuing, drinking, and having a good time.
And the cops in Buffalo, this is public drinking, but they don't crack down on it because it's related to the game and it's under some sort of basically under control?
It was under control. I didn't see no violence, no fights, nothing at all. It was well mannered by the fans of Buffalo.
Well, if only the Bills had a running game. The Saints had 222 yards on the ground. The Bills didn't even crack 100.
Sure.
And the Saints are 3-0 for the first time since 2006. I'm a little bit surprised by that, but probably no more surprised at the New York Jets with a rookie quarterback. The first time a rookie quarterback's ever gone 3-0 to start a season. And so there are various surprises in the NFL. Overall, your experience going across the border and everything to Buffalo, that was good?
That was good. I didn't have no bad experience going to Buffalo or going back to Niagara Falls. I had no problems. All they asked, where you going, where did you come from, and I told them I'm going to the football game, and I came from the football game. I had no bad experience whatsoever.
And so the last question that I know Adam is dying for me to ask: did you have actual buffalo wings while you were in Buffalo?
Actually, I'll be honest with you, I totally forgot all about it.
Boo earns, Frank. That's like going to Kansas City and not having barbecue.
Well, I was talking to the people there, and I totally forgot all about it.
I can't believe you didn't sneak into somebody's tailgate party and grab some wings.
Well, I was thinking about, but since I'm in the States, you never know with these people.
Yeah, well, I guess not. So are you going to be going to another NFL game this season, Frank, or is that it for you then?
That's it for me for this year. Next year, I'm thinking of going to, we're already talking about going to Chicago or to Green Bay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right, Frank, I have to leave it there. You'll be in the studio with us next Monday?
Yes, sir.
All right, right on. I'm glad you got home safe and sound, and I'm going to have to nag you about not trying buffalo wings while you're in Buffalo for the rest of the season.
Okay, we'll talk about it.
Okay, thanks very much. Frank the Italian Barber will join us next Monday with Brad Harrison of Kirby's for the NFL review that we do, weekly review we do every Monday here on the Great Canadian Talk Show. A caller says they have a Diane Severson story. She was the captain of the Canadian All-Stars, the roller derby team. I'm going to have to get that story from that listener later. And let's see now. There one more email from a listener, and this has to do with the column by Gordon Sinclair last, I think it was Friday, where he used Farron Hall to help tell the story about Geraldine Beardy, where the conclusion was that what was it? I'll get that line. They came in from Garden Hill, and you know what? The city ate them up. The city of Winnipeg ate them up. And a listener, I think just about any place would eat up a shoplifting alcoholic. Well, our listeners aren't so dumb, I got to say. Of all things, I didn't even get to Gerald Flood's op-ed piece today, or op-ed piece on the weekend, rather, where he wrote about the trials and tribulations of his of repairs to his Toyota.
Toyota's verdict of Winnipeg's roads,
the worst in Canada.
That was that
they sent in specialist technologists to figure out why the rate of front end failure, parts failure, here in this city. And the conclusion, the worst roads in the country, and yet we're spending money on diamond lanes, on separate bike paths. Fix the damn roads. But no, we put money towards the government's, their commitment is towards all sorts of other things. You've had people running for premier that wanted to install dual flush toilets in schools. I guarantee you the maintenance bill would have gone up by a factor of 3 if Andrew Swan were to succeed with this. You have another guy running for premier that wants to stifle free speech. Oh, look at this. An email I'm going to mention from who? From Colin Craig, Provincial Director, Manitoba Canadian Taxpayers Federation, Manitoba. Glad you mentioned the story about David Chan. That's the storekeeper in Toronto. I just signed the petition. Incredible story. The guy should have been given the key to the city. It's appalling he was arrested. Well, we are going to continue to stand up for what's right. We are going to continue to cover the stories that you're interested in here on the Great Canadian Talk Show. We will have more of the same tomorrow, as well as our guest, Tal East of CDI College, the marquee sponsor of this program. Kelly Dennell joined us for the Crime Court's Public Safety Update. Don't forget, Thursday night, Premier Championship Wrestling. The fans have voted who the opponents will be for the various champions. Kenny Omega, star in Ring of Honor now, the PCW champion. He's going to be wrestling another guy who's been a guest on this program, the hockey referee, Ryan Wood. I don't know how Woody fixed the vote to get a title match. Outlaw Adam Knight will be facing his old partner, JP Chaos. And there's a 3-way tag team match on top. 3 different tag teams competing for glory, including 2 other stars of Ring of Honor coming out from Montreal, Kevin Steen and El Generico. Top-notch entertainment, Dylan O'Connor's on Thursday night. I think bell time will be 9 p.m. Great food, great wrestling entertainment over there at PCW. And we'll talk more about that event in the next couple of days. And did I mention Roller Girls are coming in and are going to be on the show? I think I'm going to have them come into the studio on Thursday.
Sounds like fun.
4-day week, but it's full. Adam, thanks very much for your help in there. A little bit of shell shock from CRECOM number 3 there?
No, not so much.
Oh, okay.
No.
But you know what we say about having people available to board op? The more the merrier, especially for Fridays.
Yeah, no kidding.
Okay, that's it from us. You can contact us overnight, talk@kick.fm. What else do I have to remind people about? Isn't there a sports show on at 6 o'clock on the station?
Yeah, about 13, 12 minutes. We got a local sports show.
The best in local sports. Replay of this program from last Tuesday tonight at 11 p.m., more or less. And then we'll be on live again tomorrow with all the news, information, opinion, and observation that you need to know. That's it from us. Now stay tuned for Winnipeg's best news, sports, talk, and entertainment and music all evening long on Winnipeg's Indie Station. By the way, we need a new morning host. Anybody interested, email us and we'll let you know how you can get involved here at Kick FM. That's it for us. Now stay tuned for everything I've just mentioned and more here on 92.9 Kick FM.
Expressed on this program by the host, the guests, and the callers are not necessarily those of 92.9 Kick FM, our sponsors, or Red River College. The Great Canadian Talk Show on 92.9 Kick FM.